Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Vitalism with me, Dr. Eli Camp. And today I have a special guest, Dr. Nathan Petersburg, who I've known for a number of years. I'm very excited to have him on the call. We are truly Vitalist buddies from way back.
Yes.
As you all know by now, well, those of you who follow me, and if you're new to my podcast, welcome. We're talking about the body's ability to self-heal. When we just boil it all down into a small little nutshell, we were not taught, many of us were not taught that the body can self-heal. And because we weren't taught that, we weren't taught what we need to do in order to help our body self-heal, right? And when you are giving your body what it needs and you get out the junk and you stimulate that innate healing ability, you know what happens? The body heals. It's the most miraculous thing, right? And it happens every time. You don't even need to run statistics on it. It happens every single time. Everyone has their own level of healthy enough. Not all of us get to that level of marathon athlete pristine health. I certainly don't. But I'm healthy enough. I don't have symptoms of illness. And I know I could be a little bit healthier, like my own personal stuff. So without any further ado, I'm so excited to welcome you to my podcast, Dr. Petersburg. Could you introduce yourself to our listeners and tell them where you're at, what you're doing, a little bit about your journey to naturopathic medicine, maybe?
Sure, yeah. I'm currently working and living in Lexington, Kentucky. I spent a decade in Seattle, both with school and working out there. That's where I met you. In fact, I teasingly tell people that's how I got to meet you, was through a friend. And then the next 2 years you came into town, you stayed with us. So I had
I did.
the honor and privilege to get to have you with us, my wife and I, in our place. So that was always really fun and good conversations those times you came through. Yeah, I graduated from Bastyr University. I practiced out in Seattle for a few years, and then a couple years ago moved to Lexington. Continued to see patients both, in person and online. As the world has changed the last few years, online has become more and more common, and it works. It's not
Mhm.
ideal, but it works very well. Um, let's see. I also taught for a few years at Bastyr. I helped in the homeopathy program. I also taught hydrotherapy for a couple of years in all the labs. Loved both of those. Those were my passion, was homeopathy and hydrotherapy, because they were also both about the philosophy of what we are, of who we are, vitalism. And so those were the classes I ate up and that I just thoroughly loved and was always bending over backwards to make sure to be involved in those. So that's what I've been doing. That's what I do. I definitely have the last few years have been modifying and developing some new or branching out of some older systems into some new systems, for lack of better language and methods. Just as I've seen some things not work or not work as well as, from my perspective, the world is becoming less and less natural.
Mhm.
There's more and more synthetic stuff out there. And so I've been looking for ways to get into that to resolve that synthetic aspect, if that makes
Mm,
sense.
mm. You
Um,
mean like tech or products, packaging, food made in labs, like stuff like that?
all of that, anything from the chemicals that, I've done a lot with metals lately, even not that I'm a metals expert, but they've not done studies on a lot of the synthetic metals that are out there, synthetic radioactive elements, because they say it doesn't have a physiological component, therefore it's
Mm,
safe.
mm,
Well, that's not necessarily true from what I find. It does
mhm,
cause problems. It's just we've not done the studies because it's synthetic and therefore safe.
mhm,
The chemicals, certainly, I know hot button topic, but synthetic mRNA is in the system now, and
mhm,
that is not supposed to be there, and that is altering the way our cells function.
mhm,
And so it's harder to get a lot of these things out and or get the body to back to proper design and function.
mhm, mhm. I find the people that I treat who've had the big experimental, I don't even call them vaccines. I don't
No,
think of them as vaccines, but
nope.
as injections. They are much harder to treat. Like their bodies respond slower
Mhm.
and the changes seem to relapse frequently. The improvements they see, um, yeah, I who knows what's going on with that, but well, I know there's people doing studies and they have findings coming out, but their body doesn't operate the same way. That's what I'm finding. It's
Correct. Yeah.
yeah,
And so,
space
uh,
alien level, but you know,
yes, and that's exactly right, and that's why I've just generally termed everything synthetic, and I've collaborated with a molecular biologist, toxicologist, and we've got a formula that we've been working to make sure that that starts getting resolved for individuals, and it's
like can
had.
reverse it and put
Mhm.
them. Oh, that's so exciting. I didn't even realize you were working on something like that.
Yeah, we've got a bunch of projects going. That was our first one about a year ago, and have had good success over the last year with it. And is a way to be able to get all of that synthetic out. Doesn't fix all the problems because, again, the way I've described it, whether it be that or any other toxin or infection, is, it's relatively easy to get the toxin out, and then we have to stimulate the body to make that corrective healing process.
For
So
the
tox
damage.
for
Yeah.
the damage, exactly. So damage repair could take weeks or it could take years, but we need to get that toxin out and then I can concentrate on it. Um, I
You
know,
developing something that doctors or the public can buy to
Mhm.
use?
Yeah, we've used it in I don't know how many, but well over 150 patients so far.
Wow.
Yeah,
That is really cool. Okay, well, now you know. I want to know when that's available. I mean,
it's available. We're using it. It's not really in study anymore. We're moving forward.
I haven't seen anything from you about that.
It's been one of those where you always feel like you want a little bit more information. We've been out there a little bit on some of the vital conversations with NMI, but
Okay.
it's um it's hard to grasp the
Mm,
concept because I also come at it from my this is from what I find. This isn't fear-mongering, but it's going to feel that way for a moment, which is we also find that about 80% of individuals who did not get an injection still have synthetic mRNA from the shots in them.
from shedding, from
We
spillage,
we
from
call it
food.
transmission, whether that be from sweat or respiratory droplets, but it's not about the spike protein, it is simply about the synthetic mRNA and the
Hmm.
packaging with that.
Hmm.
So, our formula works for both cases,
Hmm.
but it's a concept we're not used to talking about.
Well, it's scary for people. You know, they
Correct.
think they protected themselves by not getting the injection, and what? But I have been following this guy in Canada. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. If you said it, I'd know it. And he has been taking from volunteers, whoever wants to volunteer their blood, to check for spike protein. And he has yet to find spike protein in someone who didn't get the injection. He finds lots of spike protein in people who got the injection, but he's not checking mRNA, he's checking for spike protein. So
Mhm.
at least people can probably still rest easy that if they didn't get the injection, they don't have spike protein running around rampant in their body.
Yeah, and
Maybe.
maybe, and honestly, from my perspective, spike protein isn't really a big deal because it's
Mm,
about the synthetic mRNA. If you
mm,
correct the synthetic mRNA, the rest is a non-issue.
okay.
I think it's been a hot button topic because it's easy to measure or easier to measure,
Mm-hmm,
whether it be through this one particular guy you're talking about. I know other individuals have used different antibody tests as a
mm-hmm,
surrogate, and so
mm-hmm,
it's something measurable and something we can attack.
mm.
Whereas if I start talking about, oh, it's actually about the mRNA, it's like, well, how do we measure that? How do I check that?
Can you?
And that's what I do. I do that all day long.
So you can check and see if they have it, and
Yeah.
then you can you talk about what it is you're using or no?
Yeah, it's a formula that this lady and I developed together. It's got about 35 different components in it,
Okay.
from oligo minerals to isodes that are very specific for what we're finding. She's got a DNA, RNA background, so in the lab, so she knows what is and isn't supposed to be in the body,
Mm-hmm.
and I know how to check for it. And so we've formulated this to basically teach the body how to get rid of the toxin and start to recorrect itself inside the cells.
And what are
Um,
you seeing clinically?
a lot of people don't necessarily feel better afterwards because it's not about feeling good or bad necessarily at the beginning either.
Mm.
But it's about getting the cells to function properly again.
Mm-hmm.
We've jokingly called the mRNA the slumlord tyrant. There's already a toxin in, say, the heart or the lung cells, and the mRNA comes in and goes, "Oh, you're weak. I'm stronger. I'm kicking you out. I'm in charge."
Mm.
And so there's
Mm-hmm.
already a susceptibility there. So it's able to get in better. So once we get that out, then we can look at the toxin or the issue underneath that and get that resolved to help that repair process.
Mm-hmm. Because it sounds like it's probably pretty hard to, well, and I'm experiencing this, but maybe what I didn't put two and two together was at the root of it is mRNA, making it not impossible, but making
Close.
my life really hard as a doctor, right?
Hmm.
Um, so it sounds like in order to really make it long term, right, cure, like as Hahnemann
Hmm.
likes to say, bring the patient to cure, you have to get rid of this.
Hmm. And that's
Mhm.
partly why we say the spike protein is kind of secondary for us.
I see.
It's the cells are being coded and taught how to make it or to make it. So it's I like analogies. Not everybody does or illustrations. So I think of the cells like the warehouse or the factory, excuse me.
Hmm.
You can pump out 1,000 widgets a day, but if the factory's making bad widgets, who
Hmm.
cares if you keep cleaning up the widgets because the factory keeps producing bad widgets? So
Hmm.
my attitude is if we fix the factory, the widgets are clean and properly made.
So it might just be a matter of time before people looking for spike protein in the non-injected actually start to find it.
Potentially, yeah, absolutely. And again, I would still have the same argument, which is that's important to know, but that's not the problem. The problem is the way the cells function because of that synthetic. It's changing the R. It's making the RNA and DNA not function properly inside the cells.
So we have to have a change of conversation out there when we're talking with people about what is, because what do we do as vitalists? We get to the root cause, right, of the
Hmm.
imbalance and or assist the body in getting to the root cause because sometimes we just can't find it as humans, right?
Correct. Yep.
Um, so instead of, because everybody focuses on the spike protein, on the blood clotting, on all
Mhm.
that stuff, it sounds like we have to take people further down the trail, earlier down the trail, at a different starting point to understand why that's even happening.
That's what we've been finding. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, very cool. Well, I've missed a few vital conversations over the last year because of all my homestead nature cure work and, all
Which is
my
so
animal
awesome in itself,
projects.
just by the way.
Well, it's good work and it's healing and we're teaching and I love what I'm doing, but I miss coming to the vital conversation every week and I do.
Yeah.
So, okay, Lexington, Kentucky. Is Kentucky a state where it's a felony for naturopaths, or is that Tennessee?
That's Tennessee. It is
Okay,
unregulated in Kentucky, so it's not
okay,
unlicensed, it's unregulated. I joke, it's kind of like the Wild West. Just don't do anything dumb and you're good.
right. Kind of like Oklahoma. We have health freedom here,
Okay.
um, but naturopathic medicine is completely unregulated.
Yeah.
And those good old cowboys with hats and boots in the Capitol, if I go and I start talking because we're think about introducing a bill, that they pat me on the head and call me darling.
Hmm.
And it's a good old boy system.
Yeah, in
Totally.
Kentucky, if I say I'm a naturopath, not everybody, but well over 80, 90% of individuals look at me like I have three heads and go, "What's that?"
What's that? Yes. So you have lots of education that has to be done there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not with everybody. There certainly is interest, and people have been looking for naturopaths. But even in that world, right, just like in other states, that idea of the naturopath can have a spectrum from the very conventional naturopath to the vitalists like us. So, there's even some education even when you're looking for a naturopath.
Well, sure, sure. And we know from other states that are unlicensed, I mean, this is my experience here in Oklahoma, is that there are some folks who sold cars or did nails or hair or worked as a chef, and they decided, oh, I want to be a naturopath. And they went and did an online course and got a certificate that says they can call themselves a naturopath, sometimes naturopathic doctor. And a lot of those people are wonderful and they
Hmm.
have great knowledge and they know, certain therapies really, really well. But I wouldn't send someone with type 1 diabetes or MS or serious illness to someone without medical training. And then it goes the whole gamut. We have DOs and MDs who are getting their weekend courses in and getting their ND. And then, we have about 15 actual naturopathic doctors trained at naturopathic medical school for 4 years. Like, right?
It's a
So
long 4 years.
long 4 years. Some have done residencies, some not. And, they're kind of in the middle of the pack, right?
Mhm.
Well, I think the world needs all kinds of healers. And of course, my preference is that they understand our paradigm, the vitalist paradigm, which
Mhm.
is we should never oppose the body in its healing attempts, whether that's fever, some type of pain, um, fatigue,
Mhm.
right? We don't oppose the body. We right, and I know you and I have had conversations like this all the time. Um, Yeah, I wish they taught it in all medical schools. What does healthy look like and how do you
Mhm.
get there? How do you stay there?
Yep.
But it's a
Yeah.
different universe.
It is. And I love the way you said it at the beginning too of, and I throw myself under that same bus of like, yeah, there's things I can do to be healthier, and I've chosen not to. And uh when I used to teach, I would tease students, because if you read the old journals, the NDs would talk about, oh, they're very anti-coffee. Well, they weren't anti-coffee just to be anti-coffee. It was like,
Right.
oh, it's covering up a symptom. You didn't sleep last night. You're tired, and now you're trying to overcome what your body is telling you. And
Right.
so you did coffee. Yes, I enjoy my coffee in the morning and I have it every morning. I know it's not the best for me, but
Right.
I enjoy it. I've chosen that and I know I've got that with myself, my full informed consent, and I've chosen to do it.
Right. Well, and I think there's a difference. Dr. Jim Sensenig and I used to have this conversation all the time because he liked a little cognac once in a while.
Hmm.
And we know that alcohol is poisonous to the body. And I say this all the time because there's all of these folks out there that are like, oh, red wine, it's like it can really help
Oh,
decrease the risk of colon cancer. And I'm like, okay, it's still a poison. It is a toxin to the body that has to be processed out. Maybe one of the side effects of a glass of red wine is, some anthocyanidins running around your body, but you could get those so many other ways, not toxically.
handful of
But,
blueberries.
right? But he and I would talk, and he'd say, I really believe in this idea of moderation.
Hmm.
If you want to have a cup of coffee in the morning, it's one cup of coffee. We're not talking the big gulp, 32-ounce cup of coffee. We're talking a 8 to 10 ounce cup of coffee. And you have that first thing in the morning, not because you're tired and need to wake up, but because
Mhm.
you enjoy a cup of coffee in the morning. And that's it. And the rest of the day, you're hydrating and
Mhm.
maybe you have, juiced veggies, maybe it's just water, maybe it's herbal tea. He's like, how much damage along the spectrum of health and disease have you really done? Because I talk about this all the time. I know you and I have talked about this. Every decision we make moves us either closer to health or further from health.
Mhm.
So if the net effect in the day is 10 things that we decided to do that make us more healthy, and we've chosen one thing that moves us in the other direction. What's the net effect? We ended the day healthier than we started it.
Right.
Um, all those old naturopathic guys, when they would go to the conferences, would sit outside and have a cigar. Oh gosh, smoking a
I
cigar.
know.
The benefits of community and communing
Mhm.
and talking. And Native Americans use tobacco as a cleanser and all kinds of stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great example, and I'll teach people too, where it's like maybe you can't get organic cigars, but organic tobacco does exist,
Sure.
and so it's not always just the product, it's the chemicals and the other things on the product. I can make even in a relatively unhealthy choice, I can still make I hate to call it a healthier choice, but a better choice inside of those unhealthy choices.
Right. You remember, did you ever take a class from Walter Crinnion? I know you know who he was, but
I did not. No, he was not teaching, and I can't remember when he passed, but no, I did not.
okay. So, for those of you who don't know who he is, Walter Crinnion was probably the world's leading authority on the toxins in the environment and what we could do to mitigate that for ourselves, right? How could we, because you cannot avoid environmental toxins. You cannot, I'm
Mhm.
going to say it again, cannot avoid
Mm-mm.
completely environmental toxins. It's in the air we breathe, the water we drink, um, maybe the food we grow or we hunt has a much lower toxic burden, but who lives in a capsule, right?
Right.
Right in that environment. And uh I forgot where I was going with that. What did you say right before I said Walter Crinnion?
Oh, I can make better choices
Yeah.
within that toxic
So
choice.
he used to tell us when he was teaching, he used to say, take everything that you do in a day where you're exposing yourself to something that has toxicity,
Mm.
and just make sure at the end of the day that you have done things that decrease the toxic burden rather than increase the toxic burden. And the very first class he taught us, uh, that I had with him, it was just called environmental medicine. I left that class in tears.
Mm.
I was so overwhelmed when I realized all the toxins that were around me all the time. I was
Mhm.
breathing, I was absorbing, I was eating, and I left with a sense of complete and utter hopelessness. And I
Oh, yeah, yeah.
hadn't learned what my chronic homeopathic remedy was yet, so I didn't have anything to dose. This was early
Okay.
in the 4 years. And so I went to him the next week before class and I said, dude, I had no idea we lived in such a toxic world. And he used to have a radio show. I think it was out of Seattle.
Oh, I
He
didn't
like
realize that.
he wrote several books. He's passed away, but he wrote several books, all this stuff. So I said to him, "You are freaking me out. I cannot function with all of this information you're giving me." And he said, "You have to know it. You
Mhm.
have to know this because people are going to come in to see you and their symptoms are going to be because they've been poisoned by the environment they live in."
Mhm.
And I said, okay, but maybe could you take the last 10 minutes of class and either give us some good news or give us some strategies? So here's what I taught you today, but here are 5 things you can do to decrease the burden from all these things I just taught to you about. And he was like, that's a great idea. And he started doing that with the very next class, and people were not leaving in tears anymore.
Mm. Yeah,
Did you know before you went to school how toxic the environment was? Like,
I did not. In fact, just even in the last 2 years, because of what I've been doing and developing, it's exponentially more than I understood. Uh,
yeah.
but I tell patients now, like that actually at this point, that brings me comfort because I don't believe in randomness. So your symptoms are not random. They developed over time. And I'm working on that method to be able to say what those causes tend to be.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not random, it's explainable, and this is how and why. So knowing that I, myself, and the world is exponentially more toxic than I imagine actually brings me comfort now.
Hmm.
Which I know is a weird mind shift because I've had some patients who are like, well, I've done A, B, and C, and I've avoided, you know, HIJ, and but why are my kids sick?
Hmm.
Well, because they're toxic and they live in a toxic world. Have you opened the windows today? Yeah. Okay, they're toxic. Have they
Hmm.
drank water? Doesn't, like you said earlier, it's all around us. And so I am struggling with this idea that we've created imaginary bubbles around us all. Therefore, we've protected ourselves from all of this. A lot of these synthetic metals or radioactive isotopes, they're in the environment because they're discharged from nuclear plants. Well, they don't just go away right away. So they're in most people. Like it's just part of life at this point. Um, that's why, right now I'm checking around 200 different chemicals, and for me, I believe it's relatively easy to get any of those out. Working with a new Parkinson patient, and there's about 8 or 10 chemicals that are what I believe to be the root cause of his Parkinson's, including PFAS metabolites, a metabolite called PPDDE, which I think is from DDT, benzophenone, along with benzophenone metabolites. I mean, these are just things that are in the environment, but are part of his root cause.
Hmm. Well, speaking about water, I did, so for the last year, I'm just ending a 1 year program. It's called Homestead Nature Cure. It was really designed for my community here, well, all over the country. They come from all over, who made the choice to become homesteaders or homestead farmers with the goal being to remove themselves from an ever increasingly toxic
Mm,
world in the city, because that's the most toxic place to be, they thought. So in the course of teaching over this year, one of my sessions, which it's set up so that one time a month it's a learning, I do a lecture, a presentation, I present information,
mm,
and the next week is Q&A, and they can talk, we can do Q&A about what I presented the week before, but usually people have a laundry list of things that they've always been curious about. They've searched
mm,
on Google, like whatever, and they trust me, and so they bring me their questions, and we meet twice a month. But one of the months was water,
mm,
and I talked about, hydrating and all this stuff. I talked about using water as therapy. So some hydrotherapy was working there. And then I talked about the state of affairs with water toxicity
mm.
in the groundwater. And I had done this in school, but shoot, that was 20 years ago where I did a presentation. And I thought surely after 20 years, they would have changed some of the problem or fixed some of the problems that I
Mm,
found 20 years ago. Right? There's a gal who was at Texas A&M, and this is all her work, is the toxicity of the water and what's being dumped in the water and what ends up in the water and what are we monitoring, because they only monitor a few things.
mhm,
They only know the long-term impact of a few things, and she has found hundreds of things. And she said 20 years ago, you start putting things in water, or it leaches from the groundwater, or it's from being dumped, and you start to have chemical reactions.
mhm.
And now you've got stuff that's forming that we don't even know what it is, because it's just forming because all those molecules are present.
Mhm.
I mean, they don't go into a lab when they have a compound or a chemical and just throw every known thing all together in a big soup mix and see what happens. She
No,
said,
that's
and then, it's traveling. So some things can be relatively inert until it gets agitated, and
mm,
things travel through water pipes and it swishes and it swirls. And she said, you could have some things forming because it swirls clockwise, and some things form
ah,
differently because it swirls the other direction. No one has studied that.
no, that's a great
And
point.
and she, to date, so 20 years later, she's still doing the work, and she has a list of unidentifiable, well,
Oh,
she has a massive list of what she's found in the water that the EPA does not, or any city, anybody doesn't even look for or treat. But she has a list of chemicals, chemical compounds. They don't know what they are or what they do because they have chemically reacted.
hmm.
That's scary.
It was earlier this year, I treated myself for contrast MRI dye. I've never had contrast. I've never had an MRI or any imaging in my life, but it's in the water supply. It's just at a non-toxic dose. But my toxicity reaction is going to be different than your toxicity reaction versus anybody else's. So it's not about the jokingly saying toxicity just means did you die? It's about how does my body view it and begin to respond to it. And that level is going to be different for each individual. So even though I've never had that contrast, I had to treat it because it's in the water supply and my body reacts to it.
Do you filter your water?
I do.
Wow. But we get
But at the
water
same
from many,
time,
many, many places. Yeah.
many places, and I, 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 I joke with people. There's a real answer and a reality answer. Doesn't mean you like even on an airplane, you get bottled water. Well, where's that bottled water come from? Or
Oh,
from the store, right? So
yes.
this, even if I filter my water, what water did I get at the restaurant? Well, maybe we should, none of us should ever go out to eat. I don't know. Maybe that's not a reality, so it gets really not complex, but the reality of how do I live in the world and in life. I already do certainly avoid certain things and certain choices by my own choice, but that doesn't mean I couldn't pick up that exposure somewhere else. And
Right, which
so,
was Crinion's point. You're
yep,
exposed all day, every day to stuff that is completely out of your control. So why not control what you can
correct.
and then bless your body, be thankful for your detox, routinely detoxify these things out. Well, and it sounds like you're working on cleaning out, detoxifying out things that we didn't even know were there.
hmm Yeah, there's
Yeah.
some chemicals and metals that I've almost gone to bed with headaches with because I'm like, wait, this can't be possible. But even just a very short cursory research is like, oh, no, it is possible.
It's
Or it is
possible.
not only possible, but most likely slash provable because it's there. Once I know it's there and I can find it, I know how to get it out. And then it becomes not as big of an issue. But it is not frightening because again, it's something I see all the time every day now. But the first couple of times I'm like, this doesn't make sense. And then it's like, well, actually it does. And that's
So
why it's now brings me comfort.
So have you done any recorded or live webinars or something? I know my audience. So I'm going to get a flood of emails after your session airs, which is fine. And they're going to say, "Well, how do I get tested?" Like they're going to want to know how they find out for themselves what's going on in their body. So have you done or have any webinars that we could send them to that you've done for the public? If not, I'm going to give
No,
you homework.
I've got
So
homework.
do a webinar, just an informational, even 30 minutes, and talk about this stuff like what's the problem, what's accumulating, how do we test it, and then how do we get it out so people can come learn about why they should do this, what they should do. I'm assuming you training other physicians how to do this?
One right now, just because it's been a fluid process as I learn.
Okay.
Um, I don't reject anything I did 2 years ago, but there were some shortfalls in what I was doing 2 years ago with it.
Well, isn't that true with everything in life?
Exactly,
Yes.
exactly. And even
Yeah.
6 months ago, I thought I was like, okay, I'm really solid. I feel really good. And then some other things happen. I'm like, oh. I
Oh,
didn't think about that.
right.
I know what I know and I don't know what I don't know, and people don't talk about certain things. For example, just in the last few months, I've changed how I've looked at metals. Because I think of metals as being metals, but I
Mm,
never thought about metals being metal isotopes or metal salts. And the
mm,
body responds differently to those, and the
mm-hmm,
treatment is slightly different because it's not a metal, it's an isotope. It's
mm-hmm.
not um California come 252. It's an element. That is a different element, and the body responds to it differently than another isotope of californicum or
Hmm.
mercury or other things. Radon and polonium isotopes. The body responds differently to those than the metallic or the gas version of them.
Hmm.
So it's been a mind bend for myself, and it's like, okay, need to retweak. So it's been a slow process, but working on it.
Well, it sounds like you may be well on your way to becoming, the guru on metals from the vitalistic perspective,
Oh, I don't
right?
know. I don't know. I do what I
Well,
do.
we need that. We need that, and we probably need to understand better the things that you're learning to help our patients. Like,
Yeah.
I do a homeopathic heavy metal detox.
Yep.
And I was what I was taught, and there's lots of other homeopaths who do this. I don't use a protocol per se. I use the metal, the
Yep.
potentized metal, and
Perfect.
and I can test before and I can test after. We can see a difference. I used to do a challenge urine test, and I used to chelate.
Mm.
That was in the very beginning. And then when, of course, I met the elders, the NMI elders, and they were like, "Well, what are you doing that for?" Just use the potentized form of the remedy. And I was like, come on, really? That's going to work? And it really does work.
It
So
does.
I've done that, but I think that's the tip of the iceberg because it's only the metals they test for in urine.
Hmm.
And I don't do a challenge test. And I know that there's other stuff. I know that from doing this research for my water lecture. I know there's other things. So,
Hmm.
well, let's switch gears a little bit. What sort of things? So you're seeing patients
Hmm.
in person or virtually or both.
Yep. Both.
Okay, and we'll make sure and get your contact information. But maybe share with our listeners a little bit about what the process is like working with you. So everyone who's come on and we've done the interview,
Oh.
everybody does things just a little bit differently and what they
Hmm.
focus on. How does it go in your practice?
Yeah. So especially with distance, I do collect a blood spot for my food intolerance. So I'm sure I've seen some of the other folks on here. I'm sure that's come up several times.
Yes, yes.
So I do food intolerance, but with that same sample is what then I can use to check. Well, let me just start back. So once I've got the sample and appointment, right? The appointment is important because one, I want to get to know the person, and it's set up for 90 minutes for my first appointments because I really want to know and understand more what's going on. A lot of individuals don't know much about vitalistic naturopathy, so I also need a little bit of time to explain my thought process. Not all of it, but just like, hey, I'm going to do things differently, and this is kind of why.
Mhm,
Um, but then I also want to know what's going on with them, what their complaints are. But then from those complaints is when I then take their sample, and then that's where I do my analysis and I figure out what those chemicals, infections, or metals are that are inhibiting the function of those organs.
mhm,
And so once I know what's there, then I can formulate some drops that then begin to resolve those things so that
mhm,
that organ, gland, hormone, whatever it is, can start to function properly and start that repair process that then
mhm,
takes, whatever amount of time.
mhm.
Um, so I joke with people after every appointment, I'm the one, just like today with you, I have lots of homework.
Yeah, homework. So, but you also incorporate the core stuff of vitalism, right? You're looking at food with people. This is why he checks food intolerance, folks, is because
Yep,
you can't give people guidance on what to eat and what not to eat unless you know what they're intolerant to.
yep.
Um, homeopathy,
Yep, I joke I'll never have enough remedies, and yet I've got, I don't know, 10 or 12 cases of them.
right? Right.
But it's never enough. There's always another remedy I need.
I'm the same
Um,
way.
Good.
Do not set me into a website. Like I have my inventory in a spreadsheet so
Same.
that if I see a remedy, I can be like, oh, do I have that one? I should get that one. I'm going to get that remedy. Yes.
I've bought a few that way just for cool factor. Like I bought Gettysburg water one year just because I wanted the cool factor of saying I have the homeopathic of Gettysburg water,
Oh,
which
that's really cool.
meant something to me because I'm a history major. But
Yeah.
it means I've never used it. ever, but
Well,
it's in my box. It's just for
has
that
it
day
been
when I do.
proven?
Yeah, I think so.
That's
Berlin
interesting.
Berlin Wall as well. I bought Berlin Wall after reading the proving on it. I'm like, oh, I want that remedy. That's
I
just
got
cool.
Berlin Wall too. I did.
I know.
I wish it was a bigger proving, but at least it was consistent amongst the people that did prove it. So,
Yep. So
okay,
I
so homeopathy. Do
homeopathy.
you do homeoprophylaxis for childhood illnesses?
I do.
Okay,
It depends on the interest of the person. I use homeopathics acutely, constitutional,
okay,
prophylactic, all over the place.
okay, and herbal medicine.
Lots of herbs. That's been the other thing I've been developing. I've started combining herbal tinctures with Gemo herbal tinctures.
Oh, fun. Yeah.
Because I feel like a straight Gemo only hits certain planes and levels, and an herbal tincture only hits certain planes and levels. But I've found that when I combine them, I get better results.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And
So
Gemo, for people who don't know, is the young plant that we consider holds all the potential to become the adult plant, and it's potent, right? It's
mhm.
potent herbal energy. Just for those of you who don't know what a Gemo herbal is.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, okay, and you make your own. Are you making your own tinctures there, or not? Not to that point yet.
Not to that point. I make my own formulas. So, because I'm
Okay,
developing my own formulas I've got one now for the endocrine system, male or female hormones, cardiac system. Uh, we made one that's got some potential sleep. We're playing around again, just formulating it with a friend. Um, Maybe it's got some sleep aspects. It's more working on calcification, but including calcification of the pineal gland. So we've seen some sleep benefits with it. Um, so we're really trying to kind of push the limits of what we can do and what we know. Some of the herbs and gemmos are clearly been used that way, and sometimes they've not been used for those different things. But that's
mm-hmm,
what ends up working
mm-hmm,
for some relatively unknown reason to us, but they work synergistically together and they work for those aspects.
mm-hmm,
Been
mm-hmm.
a lot of fun.
Yeah, let's get those pineal glands uncalcified. Let's
Yeah,
decalcify them. They
that
don't, the
that
powers that be don't want that to happen.
that formula was working great. I was the first test subject on it, and if I took one drop, just one drop at bedtime, I slept better.
Wow, that's
If I
cool.
if I didn't, my sleep wasn't the same.
Right.
So, um,
Okay, and of course nutrition. Do you
absolutely.
follow a particular, so are you you need to eat protein, fats, and carbs according to your food intolerances kind of food person, or are there particular ways of eating that you promote more like Mediterranean or keto or things like that?
I stress more the food intolerance and then I hate this language, but I'm gonna use it, whatever you feel better on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's a certain thing, I personally do better with higher protein. So
Mm-hmm.
I do a higher protein, but that does not work for everybody. So
Mm-hmm.
I really try to stress or find from the individual, what do you feel good on?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
That's
push
so
that.
amazingly individualized. Imagine that. Oh my God.
Don't tell anybody.
Don't tell anybody. And then hydrotherapy, you're still doing hydro?
Yep, in Kentucky, not so much, but guess what? You have a home and I can teach you how to do it at home. So,
That's what I was just going to say. I have to do that in Oklahoma. I write a script for them for the Metler or
mhm.
like one of the sign machines. And then I have a video I made.
Oh, nice.
Um, and then I go to people's homes and I'm like,
Yep,
this is how you do constitutional hydro.
yep. Love hydro, whether it be constitutionals. I'm a huge fan of wraps because it's
Yep.
just easy.
Yes.
I tend to even travel with a wrap for myself because that's what benefits me.
Yep.
For whatever reason, when I travel, neck wraps are my go-to, and they just put me right.
Right.
So I love hydro all the time. Probably not often enough just because of reality for some people, but I definitely, it's definitely in there.
That's very cool. Physical medicine.
Not as much. I was in school, everybody viewed hydrotherapy as physical medicine. I didn't. I felt like they were complete opposites,
Right.
which isn't true
Right.
either. But I was
No.
like, no, because I'm not a phys med guy. I didn't enjoy that. I enjoyed hydro. I wanted the water.
Yeah.
So I was never, I joke with people, no, you don't want me to do physical medicine.
Even AK or AKSOT, like, no.
Mm,
Okay,
no,
well, that's all right. Hydro and homeopathy and herbs and lifestyle fix just about everything, don't they?
pretty much. And then I've
Pretty
got
much.
that sample that I then can analyze to find everything else. So I
Yeah.
just kind of don't
Well,
worry.
that really intrigues me, and I probably will send you an email about that separately. I do think you'd probably get a huge interest in people learning more about it, both doctors and just everyday people, because, it's something different and it's something that we all worry about. I have
Mm,
had those thoughts myself, like, no, I didn't get injected, but did I get any of that stuff on me?
mm.
Like, it's out there, it becomes pervasive, and that's scary. Okay, so last question, I think about your practices. Are you sort of a pay as you go, or do you have a plan, like a program people sign up for? How are you structured that way?
Yeah, right now it's pay as you go.
Okay.
Some individuals, this has been my experience, it's not true for everybody, but some people don't need a whole lot, and I give them a little bit, and wow, that was a huge change. That's fantastic. Can you talk to them?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and so, that's fine, and they do their own thing, and then I've got others who need a lot more, and so I haven't found that balance yet, but that's
Yeah,
where
you
I'm at
will.
right now. I will.
Yeah, you will.
Well, when I grow up and become an adult, I'll figure out that balance.
Yeah, well, be careful you don't grow up too much. So, a fun fact that many of you might not know about Dr. Petersburg is, don't you do enactments?
Oh, reenactments. I used to.
Reenactments. You used to.
I haven't in several years, but I do make museum quality clothing.
Man, you're
Um,
right in the heart of reenactment land. Wow,
I used to do a lot down here. I was years ago, before I went to ND school, I was up here a lot.
wow.
Used to make uniforms for individuals. It was fun. I have made uniforms in the last couple of years, but it's just not as many.
Wow. Well, you might have a whole crowd of people who would be interested in nature cure who go to these reenactments, right? I mean, they
Yep.
have a bond with history and
Yep.
how things used to be done. Well, we used to be able to doctor ourselves and in our communities, and
hmm
you'd probably be like a small celebrity there. You could set up a medic table.
Well, there was one of the last events I went to before I went to school. I did a little bit of research, and there was a homeopathy hospital and school in Iowa at the time.
Yeah.
And the unit we were portraying was an Iowa regiment. And so I was turning in my resignation to my commanding officer because I was going to homeopathic school.
Oh, that's so cool. Well,
So,
do at those reenactments, do they have like little tables and booths set up,
oh
like where
yeah.
you go eat and something to think about?
Depends on the event. And I've also have done lots of events where there's no spectators, where it's just for
Oh,
us, and so it's quite different, but there are other events where it is more like that for the public.
right, right. Well, cool. I always thought that was a really awesome you boy, right? Useful bit of information, a tidbit.
I was a
Well,
little
that
worried
is
where you were
so
going to go with
cool.
that, so that was a good one. I was like, uh-oh, what's she gonna say?
I know. Well, I always like my guests to have an opportunity to leave some parting words of wisdom for our listeners. um, if you have anything that you'd like to tell them about their healing journey.
Yeah, I remind people a couple of things. One, it's a process, right? And it's not a straight line process. We all know that it's not a straight line, but I think we all forget it. It's a process over time. You didn't get sick overnight, and healing takes time, and only your body can do it.
Hmm. It's so true, isn't it? Well, thank you so much for joining today. I
Oh, thanks
learned
for
a
having me.
bunch. I'm really excited to do some follow up chatting with you. uh, once we get off the air. And all of you look in the show notes on how to contact Dr. Petersburg. Do you do discovery calls, right?
I sure can.
Yeah, so that's where you could spend just a few minutes with him and sort of tell him a little bit about your story. The most of us do that to make sure it's a good fit because sometimes people get on the phone with me and they're like, yeah, I don't want to work with you. And so I have to
Hmm.
send them a list of referrals, or I get on the phone with people and I'm like, I really don't think I'm the right, best doctor for you. So those discovery calls are great. Remember, the body can heal itself. You are on a journey, and one thing every day. If you can do one thing every day that moves you a little bit closer to health, then you are doing a great job. And I hope you all have a wonderful couple of weeks, and I'll see you when I see you.
Thank you. Bye.